Hi everyone, it's Marissa here from Rise High and
Lachlan Turner from Turner Real Estate.
And we're of course here to give you the Adelaide property quarterly market update. This is our first quarterly market update for 2024 and we're wrapping up the results for the end of the 2023 year at this stage, looking at what happened in the December quarter and how the Adelaide property market's going in comparison to the national market, and we're looking at what's happened, what we think might happen. So you're in for some great info today. Thanks for tuning in. How are you, Lockie? Start of 2024. It's already been a good start to the year, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's already been a busy start, there's no doubt. Buyers are extremely active in the marketplace. So if you're a buyer, it's probably a bit annoying because when you go to open inspections, there will be other buyers around. We are seeing a continuation of low stock levels. In fact, we are lower than this time last year, and last year we were already at a record low volume of houses for sale. So in that sense, the volumes haven't picked up yet, but also it's just at the end of the first month of January. We're still during the school holidays. We would expect full volume in the market to start coming on this weekend and particularly the start of February. So I'll be very interested to see.
Listings?
Thank you, Marissa. Yep. So more listings. So it'll be very interesting to see how the volume looks in February. If it is still low, then I think that's probably going to set the trend of what it could be like for the year.
Yeah, it's amazing because, all through last year when we were doing those quarterly market updates, the general theme was low supply, and increased demand. And I guess, we have seen interest rates increase drastically. That doesn't seem to have dampened demand. Clearly from what you said and from what we're seeing from a finance perspective, people are still very active. They're wanting pre-approvals. They're wanting to buy. So is that sort of what you're seeing in the market? Still low supply, high demand. Is that sort of where we're still at?
Yeah, absolutely we are. The buyers are very active. They are having to fight with each other for the properties that are on the market. Look, it's not always about the buyers, of course. The sellers, they are enjoying it, I suppose. But probably the best people that are doing well are people that own luxury property or people that own bigger property that are downsizing. They're certainly going to be getting some very, very good values for their properties. Or if you're selling and you're exiting, the property market, it's pretty good. If you're selling and buying, well, it's probably a good thing because you're selling and buying in the same market. But it's busy.
And we've seen incredible growth of the Adelaide market for quite a while now. And you sort of think, well, when is it going to start to soften or start to sort of get to that stable point again? But we saw some further growth in the December quarter, didn't we, Lockie? What was the growth that we saw in the December quarter from the Adelaide market, and how did that compare nationally?
Yeah, well, for that quarter, it went up 3.3% or 3.4%, which was actually leading the nation. And in fact, Adelaide was the leading city in Australia for growth, and it got almost 13%, and it's at 12.7%. So it led Sydney, Melbourne, all of the other markets. So that really, really says something. And then the final, and the October, November, December month that we just finished was also the highest as well. So I think the issue here, everyone, and it's a bit like science. You've just got to look at the fundamentals of what the market's going to do. It's so easy for anyone to talk about what's happened in the past, but it looks pretty clear what's going to happen in the future. The population up to the 30th of June last year increased by 671,000 people. And this is also at a time when the number of new homes being approved and being built is actually also at its lowest. So you've got 671,000 people coming into the country. They all need to be housed. They need hospitals and roads and all the infrastructure that comes with it. And this is what is pushing prices. So nothing is actually going to change. And there's all the federal and the state governments around the country that are all looking at providing incentives to increase the number of houses being built. So that's exactly what is going to occur. So the science, I guess, or the fundamentals behind it is population, and that will be a factor moving forward. And I think the market will remain strong. We just had we hit a new record high across the nation as well for the value of houses for the December quarter. And we believe we are going to reach a new record this year. So it'll be interesting to see how far it goes.
It was over 10 trillion nationally, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about the actual combined value of property. So we reached a new record for the value of property across the nation last year, and I think we'll reach another new record this year.
So, the question that we get so often from our clients and people that are looking to buy is, should they buy now? Should they wait for prices to stabilise? It's just such a confusing market, probably both for buyers and for sellers, in terms of the timing of what they should do. Is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell? What would your advice be from your perspective of the timing around when is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell?
Well, I always think the time to take action, is often more about your life and what you need as well. If you're an investor, that's a bit of a different story. You might be able to sort of pick the highs and the lows a little bit better if you can. I think if you want to get into the market and you just want somewhere to live, that you just get in the market, you do it sooner rather than later. A prediction this year as well is if we actually have an interest rate drop, which could happen in the middle of the year, particularly if inflation keeps on moving down, which is good to see that it is, then that will further fuel house prices in Australia.
Yeah.
So it could actually get harder as the year goes on, particularly if we do have an interest rate cut.
And I think that's a thing, some buyers are waiting for prices to stabilise or drop, but from what you've said, and definitely we're seeing the same thing, it doesn't look likely that that's going to happen anytime soon. It looks likely that the growth is going to continue. It's going to stay strong because, like you said, when you look at the fundamentals of the supply and demand equation, there's just a lot of demand and not enough supply.
That's right, and we're seeing exactly the same thing in the rental market. Again, Adelaide, everyone, Adelaide is now more expensive to rent a house in Adelaide than Melbourne and Hobart. So Hobart, you might go, yeah, that's fair enough, but Melbourne, more expensive to rent a house now in Adelaide, with our median price, I think, to rent a property is $601 a week. And in fact, we had incredible growth in the rent market as well now. I think it's gone up $60 a week on average and up almost 13% as well for rent. So we're also seeing horrible problems there too.
Yes.
The median rent was $450. Now it's $600, and that's happened in the course of about 2 years.
Yep.
So, and a lot of people are also thinking, well, if rent's that expensive, I might as well see if I can get a loan and buy, which adds further fuel to the fire of the demand for people trying to buy property and compete together, which again is going to push the house values up. I cannot see the market going down at all, unless, always got to have the caveat, there's some sort of global issue goes on, there's another pandemic, there's a blip, but fundamentally all of the factors are there the prices will keep moving upwards.
Well, actually, even if there was another pandemic, that actually did really well for our property market when you look at it, and property does seem to perform really well when there is uncertainty, because you see a lot of money moving from shares and other types of investment to property because it is such a stable form of investment. So it does seem hard to imagine right now what would cause it to stop or slow down. Even with that uncertainty, the property values are still holding strong. I think what you said about rent, obviously it's a massive win for investors and landlords, a massive challenge for renters and tenants, and this is something that moving forward, do you see the rent continuing to increase moving forward? Because it has been quite incredible how quickly rents have gone up in Adelaide. Do you see that as a continuing trend? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think what we we actually can give some really, really good insights in this, because we manage almost 4,000 properties in the Metro Adelaide area of South Australia. So we actually can tell everyone the real data we see every day as the largest agency in South Australia helping landlords and tenants find a home. And that is that the market or the rent prices have just started to stabilise a little bit now, and that was starting to happen sort of in the second half of last year. So I guess sometimes for us, it's occasionally a little bit of a challenge where landlords are hearing media and they're hearing the way we're talking and they want big prices, and they're very often there. But also a lot of the really, really good tenants, the quality people, where they've got good applications, good jobs and good incomes, they're already in the system and they're staying in those properties, and those landlords are holding on to them. So we are still getting a lot of applications, but sadly the quality of a few of them are sort of a little bit lower. So yes, we're still getting applications, but you really also have to assess, the quality of the type of people that are applying for them. But the prices, in a nutshell, have really started to stabilise. I don't think they'll go down
No.
You know, they might go down a fraction, but I think it'll just remain pretty even.
Well, it's the same supply and demand equation on the rent side, isn't it? You know, and like you said, with less rental properties on the market, there's less supply, more demand because we've got more people needing to rent these properties.
Yeah.
We're also, you know, there's also been a shift with COVID and everything that's come out of that, you know, how that's impacted families and whether there's more people moving into single occupancy homes and, you know, a family that was traditionally in one home now needs to be in two. So there's those changing demographics as well. There's also a bit of a trend towards investors purchasing property in Adelaide and other capital cities and renting them out on short-term rental, which is obviously taking them away from long-term rental as well. Do you think that has something to do with it, and where do you see that trend going?
What, with short term as opposed to long term? Yeah, I don't think tenants really want short term.
I think, mean like you know, Airbnb and posting their properties on, you know, short term stays. Yeah.
Well, I think it obviously maybe helps the tenants. It sort of gets them a property and gets them out of the, you know, the longer term rental market, which is probably a good thing. It'll probably help, you know, the rent prices a little bit, just keeping them even or even a little bit lower. So it's just really not ideal, because I think the rents are higher for the tenants to have to pay it, but it'll probably help the supply a little bit on the market. I think what we are seeing though, Marissa, is that unit prices as well are at record levels right across the country, and in Adelaide we're seeing some phenomenal results. I mean, I live in the east and we just sold a unit at Kensington Gardens at the end of last year, strata titled, 2-bedroom unit, built in the 1970s, fairly original, about 80 square metres of building area. Sold for $580, and then there was another one that sold in the low sixes. I mean, these are just phenomenal. I've been selling real estate for 20 years, and I remember when they reached the magical 300 mark, and now they're starting to reach 600. But you know, this is also what's happening. It's the last bastion, is often what I say, of affordability, where you can't afford the house, but you want to be in a good area, so the only option's a unit, and now they're going through the roof as well. So interesting times.
And we're seeing a real uplift lately in first home buyer interest. So there's a lot of first home buyers trying to get into the market. What advice would you say it have for first home buyers from your perspective?
Oh, geez, it's hard for them. I mean, you've really got to work out what your budget is and what you want. I would be buying a unit if you couldn't afford anything else, or buy down south, buy out north. Just even if you're not going to live in it, get into the property market.
Yes.
You know, work out your loan with a Rise High team is absolutely critical. You know, see whether you can get help from your parents if they have the capacity and the willingness to do so as well. Register with a lot of agents as a buyer. You can certainly do that at turnerrealestate.com.au. Right on our homepage, you can do that. Because a lot of agents are selling properties before they're even going on major portals. So we certainly do that at Turner as well. If we feel it's going to get the best outcome for our selling clients, we will introduce a buyer, and if they offer at a decent level, we'll sell it. So a lot of them aren't reaching the open market. So make sure you're doing that as well, and you certainly do it with Turner Real Estate, and also as renting too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the other question that we get a lot of is interest rates. What's going to happen with interest rates? And you know, like you mentioned before, we're of the view that hopefully we've sort of reached the top. I guess, you know, it is really unknown because we don't know what's happening with inflation and unemployment rates. They're still very much in the mix. But yes, it would be great if we could see rates starting to come the other way later in the year. But the reality is that there are still some people that are just now being impacted by the rising rates because their really low fixed rates are coming up for expiry late 2023 or early 2024. So there is going to be a lot of people that do have that massive increase in their repayments coming up. You know, maybe their repayments might even be doubling or more than doubling from what they were in the fixed rates. So it's interesting to see how that's going to play out as well. But you know, if you are concerned about interest rates or managing those higher repayments, you can check out some of our videos on our Rise High TV, because we've got a lot of videos there about how you manage the increase in interest rates. But
that's good.
We've already, you know, seen that has played out to some extent, and it hasn't seemed to put a dampener on demand.
It doesn't seem to have had the big impact that perhaps the media, you know, were hoping, the way they, you know, sensationalise things. It seemed to, like, it's happened, and I think it happened more probably in Brisbane and a few of the other states, not so much in Adelaide. Yeah, with that, having to sell, the mortgagee sale. I think the only positive thing, and nobody wants to sell if they don't want to, but if you're forced to, you probably have had exceptional growth of your property since you've owned it, and that's exceptionally rare. If I could, if there's a silver lining and you have to sell, you'll probably get out of it making money. That's a very generalised statement, but that's almost unheard of in history. So
good time to be a seller. Or to consider selling?
Definitely a seller, and sort of if you're under financial stress and there's no other option, at least you're not selling and potentially losing a whole lot of money. That'd be a disaster. It's just been a strongly rising market, so you should probably get out okay if you have to.
And some people have been using that strategy of downsizing, so selling at quite a good amount and being able to buy something, like you said, in the same market.
Well, that's the other cool thing, if you're still to just maybe just buy something that's a little bit less value and still be a homeowner, and there's options. I think most people, if they need to do that, will probably come out okay.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty strong end to the 2023 year, pretty strong start to the 2024 year. Looks like Adelaide property has probably some still growth ahead in 2024, and things are looking positive and strong. So good time to get your ducks in a row and look for what your next step is with property, and talk to the team at Turner. They've got a great property investment strategist team as well, and like you said, the property management, you give some great insights, we find, into people that are looking to invest and buy a property. And come and talk to our team about getting your finance approved so that you can get the ball rolling and make all of your goals come true for 2024. And we'll see you next quarter for another quarterly market update. Thanks so much for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.